Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking with a Dad, episode 86, with our special guest, Mr. Lyte Burly. Thank you for coming on this evening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All the time. All the time.
This is one we've been looking forward to for, I think at least 2 months now. We've been trying to work out a good date. Then obviously we had the holidays, and everything is a little bit harder around then. But this is one we're both very excited for. Steve and I both are. I have a love for every martial art and love the beauty of boxing and such. So I think it's going to be a fun show.
It's going to be wild. It's going to be absolutely wild. Ladies and gentlemen,
all the time.
Burly's in the building. Man, let me tell you, folks, let me tell you guys how this went down, right? So I was at my day job, which we never talk about where we actually work. Zach and I used to work at the same place. And I was feeling inspired, right? I was like, today's the day I do something bold. And I'm like, I'm just going to hit this man up. I'm like, I'm going to hit him up, see if he responds. And when you hit me back, like I'm in, I literally stopped talking to the customer I was with. I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry. Whatever your problem was that you were just addressing, that shit's going to work itself out. Called Zach up. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a little background before I let the man do some talking about himself. There are a lot of people I love to watch and consume content and have gotten a chance to talk to, and people I admire. I admire fighters and I admire minds behind fighting. And I think that this man is a fighter. I know that he is, but even more rare, he has the mind of a martial artist. So, Mr. Burly, would you please introduce yourself for the people?
Oh, man, thank you. Excellent rollout. Thank you. Beautiful rollout. If you don't know me by now, I'll go by the name of Lyte Burly, full-time martial artist, the bringer of the very little-known art of 52 blocks, which is now the fastest-growing martial art of today, which is, that is a big feather in the hat.
Yes, sir.
Proud of that. We grinded. It's only been we've only been a 15-year overnight success. So we're very proud of that.
No overnight success is an overnight success, man.
Right.
None. It's a known thing in business where the longer you're a business, the faster your overnight success is.
So, Mr. Burly, let me tell the folks how I found you, right? One day I was on YouTube and I happened to just be looking up stuff. My buddy's in the chat right now. His name's Fat Mantis, and he's what you would call a practitioner of Kung Fu. I am a gentleman that studies jiu-jitsu, traditional boxing, and Muay Thai boxing. So me and Mantis have had some heated debates. And I was just looking for some stuff to roast him with because he studies Kung Fu. To be more exact, Mantis, correct me if I'm wrong, he studies Wushu. And I razz him all the time. And I'm just like, hey, man, if I could show you something, a different look, would you be willing to? And he's like, yeah, just show it to me. And he's talking about MMA, right? So I look up some stuff and I'm just like, Wing Chun versus. Literally, that's how it started. I typed in Wing Chun versus, and I start making my way down the videos and some very interesting cats. As you know, when you type in Wing Chun on YouTube, you're going to be exposed.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you could be there for days.
But then I find a video that was very interesting by a gentleman who's a police officer in Chicago. And a man who said that his exact quote was that my Wing Chun is so deadly that it's like an atomic bomb going off. So I was like, well, anyone that makes that claim, I got to watch it. I make my way. I've never seen him actually touch hands with anyone, but then I stumbled onto a video with a gentleman who had flown in. I could tell he was from New York. I'm pretty sure I know which borough he's from. And he introduced you. He's like, this is Lyte Burly. I brought him here because I wanted to have him join this seminar. And I could tell you guys had just wrapped the seminar. And I could tell, I'm like, they must have just sparred or something. And he started talking about you guys touching hands. Can you, if you're allowed to, can you tell us about that interaction and what that was like of it?
It was the great thing about that was I had a diving board because there was the whole back and forth in 52 about who had the real 52 was at a fevered pitch. So they had called out to Dominic Izzo and told them, you shouldn't have Lyte Burly there. He's a fraud. Right. And, you're disrespecting your school having a fraud. And Dominic later he told them, well, if he's a fraud, he got to be very stupid because he's going to be exposed here. I got the peoples. So when I got there, I'm doing my whole performance, and they're impressed, but I can see by the faces, not everybody's too impressed. So I do my thing where I let people try to hit me to show them the level of defense. They were like, okay, that was cool, but still not impressed. And I'm like, And as I'm talking to one of the Wing Chun guys, one of the other guys there, and I'm explaining something, and I'm telling him why he couldn't catch me. I move in, and he punches me in the face, and I'm like, "Whoa!" I was still talking. He's like, "Well, when you moving close to us, we attack." I said, "Oh, okay, sounds good. Could I get a set of gloves?" So let's do this again. And what happened is I ended up sparring everybody there, including my good friend Mr. Dominic Izzo, and I think that was the awakening of what he had, because it's true, like a lot of the Wing Chun concepts is moving, getting close, and that's true. But when you have someone who doesn't allow the getting close, it becomes more difficult. And
Right.
I think that's what was seen was that when you playing with somebody who has footwork, is going to be a totally different story. And he was blown away. He was like, some guys called and said you were frauds. They were totally wrong. Here's your money. It was a great seminar. Dominic Izzo was the greatest man ever. He paid me good money and he saluted me. And to this day, and that video has brought me a lot of attention because of it, because he had a big following.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was in spar, in the gym, we always say what happens in the gym stays in the gym.
Yes.
But they were they were very impressed. There was military there. There was a MMA fighter there, and they were all impressed. So I really count that seminar as one of my level ups there, because that was big for me. I was just I didn't to have the the military and people there of that nature. That was a total different look from what I'm used to. So it was great. And salute to Dominic Izzo if you're listening.
So Zach, a little backstory on Dominic. He is not the type of man, right? I lived in Chicago for a few years, South Side. He is not the type of man that gives out compliments early. He has a whole backstory. If you really want to trigger him, ask him about Jeet Kune Do, and then ask him his thoughts on Bruce Lee. And it's not that he's going to become triggered, but this is a man that he doesn't give out compliments easy.
No,
I think
he does not.
I think a good way to really get the people to understand why that's so important. Can you tell the listening audience what 52 blocks is?
It's a defensive system, and and the thing when you say defensive system, I think it confuses people, because a lot of arts are defensive systems, like you're defending yourself, but this is defensive in the actual senses that you're studying the art of how not to be hit. It is the elephant in the room. It is because we all in our mind we only have what we're going to do to the other person. Rarely do we think, well, what if he starts kicking my ass? So defense is rarely ever a thought, because your mind is, I'm gonna step in there, boom, bada bang, he's going to the locker room. I'm to be the victorious one. That's just how we see it. And it's hard to see yourself being the one being carried out. And this is why defense needs to be studied, because that's a probability once you enter the fight, is that you will be hit too. So 52 blocks is the answer to that, which is there's very few answers. And I've done a lot of martial arts, and most martial arts defense are particular to what they're doing. Like Muay Thai's defense is particular. Muay Thai is not actually good defense, because a boxer would touch them up. They stand pretty wide open. But in a boxer's defense is only good with a boxer. Muay Thai guys eat boxers up, trying to bend, and then you take the leg kick and you bend right into the leg kick. So most defenses are particular to each style. Two is one that's all. It's like an umbrella for all. This defense can be put on judo, karate, boxing. It's just that boxing was the avenue because it was introduced when black men were allowed to compete in their first sport, which was boxing. And what we brought in was the eye of defense. Offense was already there. You had fighters like Bobby Fitzmaugham's, who was credited for the solar plex punch, which became the left hook. So it was like two sides of a coin coming together.
Right.
Then it went from being a brutal art done in behind salon speakeasies and stuff like that to the sweet science.
Right.
Because it now had the counterpart, which was defense. So, you know, my teacher would tell me, is there any surprise that they, there would be a style of 52 blocks, being that defense is, primal attribute, and it started to make sense over just breakdancing, because I heard all of the rumors, like it started from a card deck, it started from a jail, and you used to be in jail throwing cards on the floor and you had to block them by picking them up. And I used to think that would be very damn hard. Like, because it's hard. I got big fingers. I'd be getting beat up because I could never get the cards off the ground. So like,
right.
You heard all of these myths and I couldn't, and it kind of confused you on like, what is this art? And to this day, there's still a lot of 52 men that can't really break down what they're doing. Like, I had one guy come all the way from Germany, and he said I was doing it wrong, and we sparred, and I hit him, and he said, "Wait, don't you know I'm half blind? Look at my eyes. You gonna step in the ring with a bear and like half blind?" But he was doing a move called the shampoo, and I was like, "So what are you looking at? What's happening?" And he's like, "No, you just start shampooing." And it's like, well, what's happening? Like, is it for overhand kick? Like, he had no explanation, and that was one of the big problems of 52, is that the science started leaving it. It became so flash and pretty, kind of like kung fu and wushu. Like there was a time when kung fu was real shit. Like when the Mongols and the Manchurians was taking over China, they did this stuff to fight back. Like they weren't doing it for wushu reasons. It was like Wing Chun for combat. Like, I always get into it with the Wing Chun guys because I'm hard on all arts, because I think you need to be critical of all arts. But I've said that the art is the man. So a Wing Chun man now, we just watched the MMA dude kick his ass. Like one dude got beat up by a guy who had one hand behind his back. You know what I'm saying? But I bet if we took one of those Wing Chun men ass, I bet the guy from back in the day, the Wing Chun guys that were fighting for their lives, I bet if you put them in the ring, it wouldn't be an easy victory. So, it's not the art, it's the man.
It's good to hear you say that. There he is, folks. We're back.
Yes, sir. I had to switch up phones. I switched out to the LG.
Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you can't trust Apple, man. They're monitoring us and they're trying to kill our stream. This is the new world order, folks. We're not that type. We're not that type of YouTube channel. I don't want to scare it.
Only occasionally. Occasionally we do
that. So the last thing I think the fans heard, and they were really digging it, man, was your breakdown of how ancient Wing Chun would beat a modern day MMA fighter. So I'm sorry to make you go through that again, but if you can give us
and as I was saying, is you take a Wing Chun man that's fighting off Mongols and Manchurians, raping his wife and trying to kill his kids,
right?
Compared to this the Wing Chun guys now that are being beat up by this MMA guy, and you'll see a total difference, and not just because of excuse me, defending your life. Is when you're defending your life, the training is going to be that much more particular over these guys that are doing forms, beating up a Wing Chun dummy, do a couple of hours of Chi Sao, getting there with an MMA guy and get pummeled. And you know what I'm saying? You get turned to mashed potatoes. So it's the level of training that shows if the art can be used. Like I was telling one of my students, it's like the brain, like, look at the instruments, microphones, all of these stuff's a manifest thought that a man came up with. Like, I want to make a microphone, something that I could talk on, people can, that was a thought, and now it's a physical product. So to believe your mind couldn't master art and use it in real time is like kind of silly. It's just your mind knows your bullshit.
Right.
So if you're only training on the Friday, you go to your Muay Thai class or whatever your class is on the Friday, you get into a fight on the Sunday, you're getting beat up. And you're gonna say, why didn't it happen? Why didn't I bust out my kicks and stuff? Because you didn't convince the person that matters, which is you. And the Wing Chun guy back in the day who was fighting his family, he had no TV, no Instagram. So when he woke up in the morning, he trained Wing Chun from the time he woke up to the time he went to sleep and for combat. So when it came time, he was ready to go. You know, you look at Khabib, who's up in there mauling people in the UFC, and then we see videos of him wrestling the bear when he was little. That's the reason. He was wrestling like a real live bear. Like, imagine and this was when he was young, when your mind is like looking for anything. Like, you can be taught anything at that age because your mind is just looking for information. So he was fed wrestling with a bear. Now he gets in the UFC and he treats men like rag dolls. Like, he just totally immobilizes them. Is that the art? Is that the technique he's using? No. Is that his mind is so built onto that? Like, he's so attached to that. Like, you scare him, he puts you in the choker hole. You scare someone else, they run the other way. That's his reaction. Like, that's his bad reaction is to choke the shit out of you. Like, that's what you know.
And there's no one better at it, for sure.
That's true.
Like, how do you beat that? So that's why I say the Wing Chun men of old would totally, destroy these new Wing Chun guys and show you what a Wing Chun fighter is really about.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that because, all right, so you're a type of 52 blocks, and I'm not speaking as someone that's an expert, but I'm someone that researches a lot of things before I open my mouth. And I've seen some other practitioners, and I've noticed, I've heard you say a term that usually you only hear Wu-Tang say about, they would just say it about R&B rappers back in the day, like, it's rapping bullshit. But you kind of turned that into like fake kung fu, even in regards to 52 blocks. Like when you're talking about the brother doing the shampoo, I remember you telling a cat where actually, I hope it's okay if I tell the story, but someone sent down one of their students to challenge one of your students. And you busted out the camera. It all looked very respectful. I know exactly what park you guys were at, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually about to go down right now." And you let him go up against one of your guys, and you're narrating it, and you're like, we see this guy doing a lot of stuff. He's doing the Philly shell. He's moving his hands around and stuff like that, but there's no purpose to it. And I'm watching your student, and Zach, I'll send you this video. I think I did send it to you. Sure. Burly's student is in a traditional boxing stance. It doesn't mean he doesn't know all of the things that are taught to him by, in learning 52 blocks, but his application was different. And I remember he walked that man down, and walked him down. Head movement was on point, and before I knew it, you were stopping the fight because he tagged him with one clean cross, and you were like, "All right, that's it."
His emotion was riding up because he was already feeling offended that they would come down there and challenge me, and I didn't realize the before that video. What's not seen is I had spent a half an hour trying to talk him off the ledge. Like, listen, buddy. This is not like fantasy. This is not going to go the way you think. He just won the Golden Gloves. He's smoking hot. He smoked like the embers were still on him. Like, like, he was still hot. And I was like, "You don't want to do this." He was like, "Nah, we heard that, your style of 52 is not correct. And, I do this." And I'm like, "Listen, man, none of that stuff is going to work." And I had got so mad because he was just, shooting down everything. I said, "You know what? All right, put the gloves on." So that's why I jumped in and stopped it, because I seen my student, young Burly, was getting to that point. Like, his emotions was riding up, and it was and they're doing it on concrete, so nobody wants to be knocked out on concrete, and so but that was a lot of the stuff, the attack we were under, because I wouldn't bend to the rule of 52. The problem with 52 is it became too much of a flash in the pan. When I was coming up, it had a lot of science, and the science were usually boxers. And there were some kickers, there were some karate guys, but it was mainly boxers. But it started to get to this point where it was all flash. Like the younger guys had forgot the science. Like even with my teacher, I met my teacher, I had the shapes, and he was like, all right, let me see some. So I threw up my skull and bones. I came with my punch. He said, okay, block look like something, but your punch like a bitch. And I'm like, oh, whoa, what happened? I had never known all this time that I've been swinging like him, but he was correct. I was punching with this part of my hand, and this is what we would, because you slap box so much that your punches start to follow the ways of a slap, and that's not correct. And that's what Wilson Pitts, shout out to Wilson Pitts, who spent time correcting me. So now my skull and bones comes with straight right, left hooks, the correct style of punching. And I get like, well, your style looks different from everybody's. And it's like, well, it's, I'm putting nobody's style down, but it's based more in science over, I'm going to look good. And it happens to all arts. Like Wing Chun has it, there's parts of Muay Thai that kind of go into more religious, cultural ways than the actual fight. So it happens with all arts, and there's nothing new with 52 that the prettiness of it can overshadow the science. Like Tai Chi. Tai Chi has been completely destroyed. Like it was a maiming art. It was an art known for maiming men. Now a whole bunch of old people with arthritis and bad backs are in the park doing this shit. It's like it's maiming nobody, anybody no more. Like the maiming days are over. Like so, any art can go into that direction, and 52 went in that direction, and that was the reason why it started to fall off the map. So, yes, they a lot of the other 52 guys in the beginning, didn't agree with my style, and they wanted to keep it more street orientated, which is nothing wrong with that. A lot of artists come from the streets, and so we had differences there. But I know my whole look on it was that in the 70s we had a whole lot of fantasy because we didn't really know. Like we walked around with ninja swords and stars, throwing stars, and we had nunchucks in our pockets and shit because of Bruce. Like, so we were all still confused, but something happened, and it was called the MMA. And if you're still confused, you gotta be a fool now. Like, the MMA has solved all of the riddles. Like in the beginning of the MMA, there was like Wing Chun versus karate, and I seen one, and the one guy was like, I studied the 5 animals, my 5 animals. Style is impact, and he was fighting the karate guy. And when the match started, the karate guy came out, kicked him in his head, and he was on the ground with his manners, and everything was asleep. Him and the manners was snoring. He was doing snoring mantis, and it was just a regular kick. It was a regular head kick. He never seen it coming because he was caught up in his manners. He was trying to be a mantis when he's a human, and he got kicked in his head. So the MMA had filtered out in the beginning. They used to say, the styles. They seen the bullshit, and they was like, all right, MMA. Enough of crab versus boxing, because it was total bullshit. The arts that rose to the top, boxing, kicking, wrestling. And now you have the refined MMA. Sure. So it's like, if you're confused now on what works, you got to be kidding. You know what I'm saying? Is that not that the mantis couldn't work, but I'm pretty sure in this time it could have worked under its under the environment they was in. We're in a whole new environment. Sports science is up. It's up.
It's crazy.
People know things. You can meet a regular guy in the street and he may arm bar you, or you be going to the supermarket tapping out like, what the fuck? Everybody knows an arm bar. Like you can get arm bar by anybody now. So it ain't fight knowledge is up. So the fact that there's still these kung fu fantasies is really amazing, and it's only a fantasy because you cannot train the amount of hours you really need to become proficient. And that's the real Kung Fu fantasy that no Kung Fu school is telling you. And I'm sorry, they may kill me like Bruce Lee, because I'm just kicking the truth right here, is that the hours you need to really be proficient, 2 hours at the local dojo ain't gonna really do it.
Nah,
Sure.
and it's funny. It's funny because I see the parallels between that. It's funny that you bring up Bruce Lee. I see the parallels between Bruce and your own story. So I know that you faced some of the persecution from the 52 Block community, as you were stating, and I know that you've also faced the persecution from traditional boxers. So you've had boxers come down who've basically come to say that 52 isn't effective in an actual straight up Western boxing match. And the reason they would say that, Zach, is because they've also bought into the hype. They're like, I have the straight line. I'm going at this man. None of the Philly shells, none of that stuff is going to work. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, Lyte?
Oh man, and my teacher told me that, and it was a high compliment, but it was kind of the truth. He said, your story is kind of like Bruce Lee, because everybody was coming to the park. I was meeting them all, and and what it breaks down to once again is I've said it, that offense is ego, defense is humility. So whenever ego is involved, it's always going to be, oh, I'll be the one to break the shell. I'll be the one to get through.
Yeah.
Even if you're playing the game, even if when I was in military school, I like to play hockey and I like to be the goalie. And that was one of the things. It's like, goalie is serious business because it comes down to you. Like, it's all on you, and everybody wants to be the one that gets it in. So I think that's what it is with most fighters, is that if you proclaim to be a man of defense, they want to be the one that breaks the shield. Kind of like Mayweather.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Whole career.
That's what sells tickets. Right.
Exactly. And he got smart on it. Like, in the beginning, when he was Pretty Boy Floyd, he really wanted to be a knockout artist.
I've heard Steve say this 50 times. I know exactly what you're going to say.
He didn't have the hands to be the knockout artist he wanted to be. And he learned that the crowd didn't love him like an Ali. Right. And a lot of boxers, it kills their career once they find out that the crowd doesn't love them the way they want. So what did Mayweather do? He played up the bad guy, and he played up the bad guy with his defense, is that I can't be touched. So many of men stepped up to be the one, I'm going to be the one that chops his head. I'm going to be the one. And it was kind of like that Gorgeous George thing that Ali stumbled upon when he was bringing boxing back, when he seen the Gorgeous George match and everybody came to see Gorgeous George lose.
Yeah.
Everybody, you know what I'm saying? And he would celebrate at the end. Ali started doing that. And that's where Ali started, running into people's gyms and making the fights way bigger. So everybody can be like, somebody needs to shut him up. And now you're coming to the fight to see this guy finally shut him up.
And it doesn't happen. So Zach, let me set up the frame for you. This guy came down to challenge Lyte. I say down, but I'm not going to shout out where you guys are at. And so Lyte's breaking down his own fight, right? He's breaking down his own sparring session. Lyte's got his gloves turned around. The boxer refused to turn his gloves around, and he wanted to keep it that way. Lyte, I'll let you tell him, why do you turn your gloves around in those situations?
My teacher did it with me, and and I've always told people I hit pretty hard, and I know in the state in the motion of fighting, it can get real tricky. So to be safe, I turn my gloves around, and I'm the man of defense, so I kind of like living on the edge. But I turn my gloves around to make sure I don't hurt anybody. Because when I did it with him, he was like, "What type of gay shit is that?" And I said, "Oh no, this is for your safety. I don't want to mess around and knock your ass out on concrete." And he was very thankful.
I could tell. So the setup is, man, I'm getting to live my boxing analyst dreams right now. Lyte is breaking down his own fight. You were talking to us earlier about systems. The one thing a lot of people don't know about getting stuck in their own systems, boxers get stuck in their own system. If you see someone pivot, and I love that you pointed this out. If a boxer sees you take the wrong footing in a stance, he's like, I got him. Lyte takes the wrong footing on purpose.
Yeah.
And the guys, and you called it, man. He's like, so you see, he thinks he's got me, thinks he has me off balance. You turned around and you caught him with a slight check hook. Tell me, how did you develop that type of IQ for fighting, man? What got you there?
A lot of fight study. One thing my teacher told me, the great Wilson Pitts, is that you can't have a conversation with me until you watch 4,000 hours of old footage. And so I went into my study, and one of the boxers I studied was a boxer named Jersey Joe Walcott, and he had a move called the cakewalk, and it was built off of that, where he would cross his legs right in front of you. You know, you could see the boxer's eyes glimmer, and then he, toss out another jab, and he would cross again. And soon as you would rush in, he would pivot off of the cross and throw the right hand at you. And I loved this move. So I spent hours studying, and and it was just one of those moments when I was like, I think I can pull this off, because he was a comer. He's a boxer that he's bringing the fight to you. I do a lot of reverse polarity fighting, which people at that time called running, but I call it fighting smart. So, he was coming in, and and a lot of that move needs forward momentum. Like, if we were just standing there and I did the move, it would have no effect on you. It would just be me crossing my legs in front of you. But to catch you as you're coming in gives all momentum to the pivot to throw the right hand. So the knowledge, the fight smarts came from fight study. Like, that's the one thing Wilson would tell me. You can jump rope, you can do burpees, but your brain can't do a push-up. So how do you get your brain to do a push-up?
Sure.
Fight study, you read, and you absorb, and you see what others have done right and what they've done wrong. So I watched so many boxers to see what moves brought them to the top and what moves took them down. So that's a part of what I brought to 52, was a whole look at of fighters that use 52: Archie Moore, Jersey Joe Walcott, Benny Briscoe, Pernell Whitaker, Mayweather. The Philly shell is an element of 52 blocks, the principle of it. And so he gave me this knowledge to look back at all these boxes and see, like, oh, this is what it is. It's not, the flash of it that turned into real flash was really just hand and body and foot feints, which is, relevant to fight. And every art has some type of feint, the Muay Thai, every art has a feint. So 52 just uses a whole wide spectrum of feint. Head, hand. A lot of the blocks in the system aren't even blocks. The name itself came from the 5%ers who, they were growing in the 80s, and they kind of attached themselves to 52, which, it all good and well. So they came 5 + 2 is 7. It's the God number. So the name they came up with stuck. And, a lot of people ask me, why is it 52 blocks? And I was always say, it's like, it's a sexy name. Like, sometimes it's like, Jailhouse Rock doesn't just roll off the tongue. Jailhouse Rock. It has, it doesn't have that thing. 52 blocks has that finesse. So it's, I think it's the one that stuck. Besides having a big meaning, there's not actually 52 moves in the system that I teach. It's mainly just the name itself. So
It's crazy because I've noticed another thing, and I want to set you up for this, man. You're huge into drilling, and I've seen that, and I've drilled with people before. Shout out to Jason Lee over at Hinzo, a guy just like you. He's got a great mind for fighting and a great mind to teach people, train a person appropriately. But I've seen you drill people, and not one punch was thrown by the person you're drilling, and it's all been head movement, and it's all been shoulder movement. And I think that's the one thing that sets you up differently for 52. But I've noticed something. Your dynamic with your students is something that I really appreciate. Where did that come from, man?
Well, as far as like training them, or like
training them, the relationship, everything.
I had one guy, shout out to my son, Kingshon, who started training with me when he was 14, lying to his mother, jumping on the PATH train to come to New York from New Jersey. I don't know. I had this strange attraction to a wide dynamic of students, and I think it really helped me. Like, my whole plan was to fight, and my teacher was like, nah, you should train, you should teach and make you a better fighter. And I was like, nah, I'm trying to fight the world, fuck that shit. I'm saying it's just getting in the way. But he was correct. As I opened up and I started training these all of my students, I grew trying to explain it to them. And then, like you said, I had such a great dynamic. I mean, like, every time I thought I had did it, it seemed like the universe would throw me another curveball. I had one guy, and tall guy, and he came, and when I met him, he was sitting down, and I could tell he was tall. So I'm like, hey, what's going on? You know, let's go. The park is this way. So when he stood up, his hands crossed and his legs crossed, and he was like, I mean, like totally handicapped. And we're walking down the block together, and I'm thinking in my head, like, did he see my videos? Like, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm heavy on the footwork. Like, it's like but I'm like, the for him to come to learn this and to put that on his shoulders, I said, motherfucker, we gonna get this. We gonna get this work. And I came and I started training him, and it was the greatest. I mean, like I've had a lot of great feelings from training people, but he was by far the greatest because there was an actual change. And my teacher used to tell me something. He said, "Oh man, it's confidence. All you're doing is giving a man confidence." And that's what he was given. And through that, whether he could take somebody down or not, he left that park feeling good. And that energy alone can keep most wolves off of you. Like I tell people, you know, if you are who you are, people know, you know, you can feel it. Like if a mechanic walks in the room, you can tell he got grease stains on his hand, on his clothes. Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? So when a fighter walks in the room, you know, like that energy is real. It's, you know, it's a natural thing. So that confidence of I'm good, people feel that. And they stray away from you because you're not an easy target. Like you're not something that, you know, they want to take. They're looking for energy that looks confused, unsure of himself. That's an easy mark, you know. So I seen with him is that it's more than just technique. It's more than just a skull and bones. He left with confidence that he can now go into the world with his handicap and say, I still can rock. I'm still ready.
I love it, man. Look, I don't want to monopolize the entire interview. I got a bunch of questions. I know Zach.
Listen, I only have I have one question. Right, that's it. Right, and you're a wonderful mind in fighting, and I could tell that from watching some of the videos and just having this small conversation with you. In the recent years in MMA, we've seen a style change in which people are using these low calf kicks, right? And it's ultimately changed the dynamic of fighting. Mostly in the UFC is kind of what I watch and keep up with the most, other than boxing. And we see people change their styles because people, Aldo, John Jones, have brought these low calf kicks in and really, you know, changed the way that people fight and that people move in the octagon because they have to worry about that always in the back of their mind with every fighter now. Is there something like that you could see, like, with someone coming up in boxing that has a technique or a style that could potentially change the way everyone thinks, because now they're like, oh, okay, well, since this guy and this camper, these people coming out of Philly, right, are utilizing this technique. Do you see something like that coming up? Do you think there is room for that in boxing since it's such a I guess an established sport now? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
As far as boxing or MMA, or
but I mean boxing I could see because you know, boxing is kind of, you know, lighter weight guys, faster, more counter punchers, where the bigger guys are just going to try to either, like, I mean, Fury's kind of the example, the odd one out there where he's going to outbox you no matter what, and Wilder on the other hand is going to hit you no matter what, right? And everyone's usually in between that. But boxing is a really good example because you could see boxing, right? You could see where a guy's like, okay, I know where to throw this hook. And it's so fundamental and so regimented. Is there something coming up or something that you think there's room for that could totally shake this up?
I believe 52 to be. I believe 52 to be the to add more style to it, and I think that's what's happening. You know, the moves never really change; they just get more of a style to them. And like, even in MMA, I was saying that way in the back that it's not really going to get there until you get someone who can deliver it in such a way that makes people want to come out. And then now we have the style bender. We have John Jones, Bones, and you know, primarily we love to see fights. Everybody loves to fight, but being able to make the fight look easy is what makes superstars. And That's the style benders. That's the people who go in there and because the fight is real. I remember when I took my first competition and we got everything, we weighed. He said, "Now sign these papers," and I looked and it said, "You know, competing in this sport, you could die." And I'm like, die? Like we could die in this? Like this death's happening. So anybody who can go in that arena and stand in front of death and make it look easy, they're going to be superstars. And that's what MMA need. Boxing already had that, but I believe like Yoel Romero, when he was fighting against the style bender and using a lot of elements of 52, I believe that helps bring the fight more for the crowd, makes the fight more stylistic for the crowd, because you got to know the crowd doesn't know you just ducked a left hook lead uppercut. Like they don't know. All they seen was there was a flurry and then you moved away. Right. They didn't know some high tech shit just happened. You know, so and it's the reason why grappling, as good as it is, it'll never outdo stand up. You stay on the ground too long, they standing you up, even though there's high tech shit happening down there. But all the crowd see there's two men laying on each other. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're the lame guy. So I just believe there's always room for more stylistic things to be added, and I think it's happening, which is defense is becoming relevant. Like you see the fighters hot dogging now in the MMA, and one guy's dancing and making you miss, and like the stylistic style of defense is now becoming the top dog. Lomachenko, we're looking for the guys that can make you miss now, when it used to be about the guys that can hit. And it's always going to really be about those guys, but those guys are not as appealing to the eye unless you're just knocking everybody out. That's the only other way you can get the crowd in there. Like if you just come in and it's boom, go home. You know what I'm saying? The crowd will love you. But if it's going to be a drawn out fight, we going to know the crowd is going to want some style to it. Finesse. And I think that's what's happening now, is even in boxing over the older days, it's becoming way more stylistic, way more entertaining. And, I think that 52 can make that happen because it already has a built-in swagger.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, the finesse, right? That's why Lomachenko got so big so fast with only 18 or 19 fights under his belt, is because he's the guy who's going to come in, hit you 3 times, and he's going to move before you even know what happened, right? In the UFC and MMA, we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who does essentially the same thing, where he's gonna come in and he's gonna hit you with 2 things and hit you with a kick on the way out, and then you're gonna realize what happened. Right. Yeah. And that's exciting to watch. That's the only question I had, Steve. Please, if I think of more, I'll jump in. I'm good at that. This has been a wonderful conversation to sit in on.
So the crazy thing, Zach and I met. What has it been? 2 years? 2 years ago?
2.5 years, something like that.
And Zach had always enjoyed MMA, and then he'd been a boxing fan, and we've that talking about fighting can build a relationship, right? We have our disagreements on a great deal of things,
everything essentially,
many things. We almost got into a fight at a hot dog stand one day. I was like, "This is it."
Okay. No relish on hot dogs, Steve. We went over this.
But the one thing we agree on in regards to fighting, and I want to pick your brain on this, and I think Zach alluded to it with this question, man, is the evolution of fighting, right? Sure. So we had Jack Johnson back in the day. Right, then we moved. We got Muhammad Ali. We got Sugar Ray, and we got both iterations of Sugar Ray. I don't want to disrespect the original and that came. Right. And so we get to this place now, man, where we're at. We see Teofimo Lopez, right? A lot of people, and I don't want to put you on the hot seat here, but I wanted to get I
the hot seat. I'm with it.
So we see a talent like Teofimo Lopez come up, man. And, there was a lot of stuff that went with his rise. Obviously, there's always been an interesting dynamic in boxing with the father-son training. His dad, not a man that I would want to square up with. I can tell that man can handle himself, and he talks breezy like that for a reason. Yeah. But you see Teofimo, and then you see the fight with Lomachenko. Did you watch that fight?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm a big Lomachenko fan, and I knew Teofimo had some star power in him.
Yes. So here's what I got to put you in a hot seat. I'm going to take their trainers out. Let me ask you a question. What were you thinking after the first round? Your initial thoughts looking at that fight?
it was, you know, I was as surprised as everybody else because, you know, I'm a Tiafimo fan, but I can honestly say that I was leaning more towards Lomachenko, kind of like everybody else.
Right.
And so by the first round, you know, I'm with the peoples and I'm like, yeah, you know, this is what Loma do. You know, he always tests the water. By the second round, he's still fainting. I'm like, yeah, you know, this is he just trying to. By the third round, he's still fainting. I'm like, it's any minute now. By the fourth round, I'm like, okay, he's confused. If you're still fainting by the fourth round, it's time to ring the bell. Like the alarm's going off. Like there's a problem. Like there's not that much fainting in the world. That means you're confused. And what I believe it was is that Tiafimo punches with a lot of pop, and Lomachenko was catching those punches on his arms, even though he was blocking, and it was enough to send a signal to his brain like he's hitting pretty hard. Like, and you know, and he didn't want to get hit with one of those things in the early off because he had a lot of pop, and it kept him, you know, off the gas pedal until too late. And I think that's going to be one of those fights that harm him because he started too late. You know, it could have been different if he would have just said, fuck it, let me see what happens, and threw caution to the wind. But I believe the poisonous of Tiafimo, the pop, his reaction time, which is his true gift.
The twitch.
His fast twitch muscles are ridiculously, I mean, it's almost mutant level. And I think Lomachenko quickly picked that up. He had like 465 fights, so it's not nothing he's never seen. So he immediately gathered that, and it kept him at bay, kind of nervous of jumping in, and he threw that fight away. And it's going to harm him. It's going to harm him.
It's crazy. It's crazy because I was watching it, man, and I drew some parallels, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Canelo versus Mayweather, right? Now, this was a fight that no one wants to give Mayweather credit on this. They're like, in retrospect, they're like, the fight happened too early in Canelo's career. I couldn't tell by the way they had gassed this fight up, right?
Exactly.
I couldn't tell that it happened too early. But we see a young Canelo come in, and this is where I'm really going to put you in the hot seat. Canelo fought one way before Mayweather. Can I get your impressions after that Mayweather fight? Did he get the rub, and did something change in Canelo after that Mayweather fight?
Sure, for sure. I believe if you can talk to Canelo now, he would probably not even classify the Mayweather fight as a loss anymore, because I think he gathered so much, because he went in there the gunner and got outgunned, and what he left with was a total respect for defense. And because he was supposed to go in there and bomb Mayweather to smithereens, and Mayweather gave him nothing to bomb. Like he kept moving the village, so he could never napalm the village. So now we see Canelo. Canelo is highly defensive, highly incredibly defensive, and it's only made him a monster because the guns were already there. He already had the bullets. Now he knows how to hide behind the bush and shoot you with the bullet. He's a totally different monster no more. He's no longer standing in Broad Street with a cannon that you can see him. He's hiding with the cannon. And that's a terrible thing. And that's, you know, by far, he has to probably be the most intelligent man in boxing right now, just because of the Mayweather clash and what he took from it. You know?
So the crazy thing is, all right, so let me backtrack. Let's get back on you for a second. I think the young brother's name is Burly Wolf. I want to say what's the young brother's name? Wolf Burly. So I had to do some digging to find this. You put up the clip that you have when you guys went to go do the amateurs, and then I think I was able to find another point of view, like of someone that was at that same fight. You as a trainer, man, I got to give you respect, because I know that you walked in there, and I could tell you off air how I know this stuff. I won't put it out on blast. I know you walked in there with some stuff to prove, and the way people were coming at you, cats, and the way you were training this young brother. How good did it feel? And if you get a chance, go to Lyte's channel, like, share, and subscribe. All of those fights are up on this playlist. How did it feel watching him get that win? I know he had won fights prior to that, but that one in particular.
Oh man, that was a big win. When he came to me, he had lost a fight by technical knockout, and he was like, could you make sure this never happened? And I was like, buddy, you in the right hands now. Because one thing we do, we lose, but we ain't going. They will not be carrying anybody out. And I can say through my whole amateur run, none of my boys ever got knocked out. We lost, but we never got knocked out. Nobody ever got hurt. So the build up to that was you won't be able to do that in the MMA. And I had seen a couple of MMA fights, and and I was like, defense can work anywhere. That's always going to be my thing. Like there's never a place defense cannot work. Like where you can say defense is unnecessary. So when I went there, there was a little naysayers, but there was the mixed martial art crowd is a way better crowd than the boxing crowd, I must say. When I used to walk into the boxing jump offs, those young guys used to run up on me like, yo, so how much you weigh? And I'm like, whoa, slow down. I'm not fighting. Got me messed up. Calm it down. But in the mixed martial art match, there was this one big guy, and he looked across the room and he said, who brought Lyte Burly in here? And he came across the room and he picked me up. I mean, he was he could have ripped me. He could have broke me in half like a Chico stick. Like he was real deal. And he was like, yo, I watch all of your videos. You are the real shit. I'm like, thank you, brother. So the energy was way different than what because these are monsters. These are guys like they got the cauliflower ears. They looking like juggernauts. Nothing like the boxing thing. So to see what we were up against, and because I had tried to talk Wolf Burly out of it. Like I told him, I said, I think you should be a boxer, man. Fuck this MMA shit. This look dangerous. Look like somebody can get hurt in here. But he wanted to do it. So the victory was, oh man, it was another cap in the feather, but it was another boost to 52 for all of the people who said that we couldn't do it or because that's what that had became the thing, is that you can do all of these moves, but are you serious enough to put your money where your mouth is? And I think that was a fair question from anybody. I didn't take it as a lot of guys took it as a hit, but I took it as a challenge. And that's the reason I've flown around the world, partly around the world, defending 52. Like when I went to Denmark, they politely tried to fuck me up. Like it was like with smiles, with Denmark smiles on their face, trying to kick my ass. Like so,
they're serious with their kickboxing out there. They're very serious.
That is a group of people I don't want to piss off.
Let me tell you something. Their bike system out there is tremendous. Everybody rides a fucking bike. So everybody's calf muscle looks like baby Huey. Like it's like everybody, even the women.
That's right.
So let me tell you, their kickboxing is so serious. Like their leg power is ridiculous. They bike everywhere. So it was really, a good challenge, but that's what I was telling the other 52 block guys, like these are the things we're gonna have to do to present our art, because reminiscing ain't gonna get it. Like respect to those brothers from the past that was doing catching pitches and all of that good stuff, but it's 2021. Like what are we doing now? Like so, that was my mission, and it's brought me to where I'm at now, and I'm proud of my fighters, and it takes a lot for a young man to get in the ring, believe in what you taught him, and and getting up and getting boo bop. Like I had a lot of times, young Burly, he came back to the corner and he was winning the fight, and he sat down, he was shaking like a leaf, and I had to go into one of my moments like Rocky. I'm like, get yourself together. You're winning the fight. Calm the fuck down. Like you gotta, as a coach, you gotta be like, you're like, you got a lot of different hats on your head. So, you got to know what to say at the right moment, or you could take his steam from him. True. So, I'm truly blessed to have all of those moments, the you know, the
Yeah.
Muay Thai, my Muay Thai homie, Mr. Knockmeezy, listening, he came down to the park. We had beefed on the internet for like a year, and it was like it's time to get it in. And we came down, and he had some tall legs. Like I really didn't miscalculate it. I think his legs started somewhere under here, and I thought I was way out of range, and he kicked me right in my chin. It was like, wow, and I was like, oh, okay, this is real. Let's go. And we, and, you know, years later, we, you know, that's my brother, you know, and it was truly.
You guys did a video with each other
friends.
too, right?
Huh?
You guys did a video with each other too, right? You guys did a video with each other.
Yeah. No, that's my brother. You know, sometimes you gotta meet on the battlefield to know who each other are, and we, you know, it was a lot of respect after that, and we, you know, to this day we're still very close. But all of those moments were necessary. Like, it was all tests for 52. You know, what can be used. Like, you're not going to use all blocks, like you said, against a low kick. Like, what do you do for a low kick? You know, now you're thinking more like footwork.
Right.
Footwork at 52, not the shape. Because if you stand there throwing up a skull and bones, you're gonna get your leg chopped. So, you know, I had to, dealing with other arts gave me, you know, a broader view of like what can be used at what time. Like, if you end up on the ground, you're not skull and bones and nothing. Like, it's on. You better know some wrestling. It's time to go to the jujitsu class. Like, I don't, like, one guy asked me, he said, well, so what happens if you end up on the ground? I said, well, then we're going to be wrestling. Like, you know, like, what you expect? Like, what you think I'm going to be down there doing this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Nah. I'm be trying to choke the life out of you. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You know, we're going to switch gears. And that's what Bruce was talking. That's what the whole message behind Bruce Lee is, that you can't force the fight. You know, if you stay in the punching mind while I'm pulling you to the ground, then it's going to be your bad day, because you didn't know how to switch gears. Like, oh shit, time to go to wrestling. Oh, kicking range. Oh, punch range. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't understand the ranges, you'll be in kicking range
for the whole day,
and thinking you safe, you know, like I was. You know what I'm saying? So,
like, I'm not gonna get into it, but I have felt a shin across the head, and I know that sweet feeling when you wake up and you look at the person looking at you, and you're like, Coach, how did they do? And they're like, that's nice. That's it for you, kid. Nice. So here's another question I want to ask you. Now I want to ask you some boxing questions, man. So you know who Greg Jackson is? The John Jones's head coach, one of his head coaches. Greg Jackson?
Okay, yeah, I heard it.
All right, so I'm going to draw a parallel between you and he. There was a documentary they made about John Jones' whole gym, right? And there's Greg Jackson and there's
Winklejohn.
Winklejohn. He's the stand-up coach. And so everyone gave Greg Jackson a lot of trouble when he transitioned into MMA from grappling, because he had never competed and the level where they could see before. There was no proof that any of the things that he taught people could be verified, other than like, hey, your fighters are out there doing it. So we don't even know, like, if you can do these things. Someone came at you with that energy once. Yeah. And but I don't think that they were aware of your own journey. So I'm going to tell the people that I've seen a video of you. I don't know how old this video is, but you went to various different martial arts tournaments with boxing gloves on. Can you tell me about that, brother?
Oh, man. We walked in there like we came straight out the park while everybody was wearing their wushu clothes. Everybody had on their Chinese slippers and stuff. But no, it was like, that was another part of the journey, was that, you know, I believe that I needed that experience, because you can spar, you can drill, you know, you can practice your techniques, but competing, there's nothing like that, because now you're dealing with another level of fighting that sometimes sparring can do it, but drills can't, which is the chemical reaction that happens when it comes time to fight. Adrenaline in your bloodstream, endorphins cutting off your nerves, and your body damn near going into shock. So competing is good at this, because you're going against someone you don't know. Like, when I was fighting this guy, I could hear I think it was his mother or something, or maybe his grandmother, and she was like, "Fuck him up, John." You know what I'm saying? Like she was telling John to fuck me up. Like, so you're hearing all of this. You know what I'm saying? You're under these lights, and there's nothing like that. So I jumped into the competitions. I was like, I want to see, you know, what's going to happen. And I did. And I wasn't just one. Like they had to fight. Then they would have the kung fu, like the cheese sao, the bagua, the push hands. And usually what happened is those guys didn't compete in the fighting, and the fighting guys didn't really do that. They was like, oh, that's bullshit. I came to fight. I was one of the guys that I was there for all of it. I was there for all of it. So I would fight and then go do the push hands and go do the cheese sao tournament because I wanted to see there too. Like, is this a kung fu fantasy? Like, you know, what can I happen? And it was, oh yeah, I brought it to them in the Wing Chun. I caused quite a stir. Like there was one coach and his students were in the tournament, and I was beating one of his students, and he was talking to me. And as I was talking to him, I said, "It's the way he's standing. He has no base." And I hit him, and he flew off the table. And he was so mad. He was so mad at me. He made me do. He did not like my style, and he made me do one match as the decider. He said, "Do it with one hand." I said, "One hand, let's go." So I got crazy with one. I showed him that Wing Chun magic with one, and he was like, "All right, we can't stop this guy." This is like we threw everything at him, and it like I said, those moments were good because then I seen what Wing Chun could be good for in real time, which was the grappling. Like it's good for grappling. That Fook style, Quan style. You're not going to have enough time to get that off. Look at MMA. Like, when are you going to have time for this? Like, do you see a jab? Like, do you know what a jab is? Like, do you think you can? You know, you're not. It's just not going to happen. And at this tournament, I was seeing other kung fu fantasies fail. Like one guy who did drunk boxing. He had his whole family with him. He had the wife, the kids. They all at the ringside. Now in Lei Tai, because we was fighting Lei Tai, and all it meant was elevated platform. You're fighting on the platform so they could throw you off. So we're on the platform. So you're on the platform, and if you fall to the ground, it's 6 points. You know, you get 6 points if you throw the guy to the ground. Now you know with drunks fighting, they throw themselves to the ground. So as they did the pose, he did this and he threw himself to the ground. The ref ran over there and said, 6 points. So he was beating himself. Like he totally threw the whole match away, throwing himself to the ground, and he kept giving the other guy 6 points, and his family was just standing on the side, and I'm looking around like, does anybody see this but me? Like, this is crazy. But it was kung fu fantasies failing right in front of your face. You know, it just, you know, this is, and you know the guy that won the heavyweight division, because I was in like the welterweight division. This was against everybody. His move was he ducked under your punch, he grabbed your legs, he picked you up, he walked you over to the end of the Lei Tai platform and threw you off face first. He won everything. That one technique could not be stopped.
You gotta know the
I've seen this technique in the hood. Like that technique wins in the hood all day. I've seen it right next to the Waffle House. Like they do it all the time. And he cleaned everybody's clock with one move.
It's like an old school Tekken character.
Listen, his whole move was I pick things up, I put them down. And that's all he did the whole time. He picked you up, he put you down on your face. That was it. That was his whole technique. He didn't kick, he didn't punch. And he defeated everybody. Everybody.
Speaking of Go ahead. I'm sorry, brother.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, because I wanted to ask you, man. Speaking of simplicity, man, like, all right, Burly, I want first answer. You keep it 100% with me
all the time.
We're gonna talk about a heavyweight, and it just made this is off the top of my head. Tyson Fury. What are you thinking about What do you think about Tyson Fury? I've been waiting to ask you this question, like, so I got to ask you a follow-up question about his greatest rival.
Tyson. Tyson Fury is amazing. Like, because of everything that's being said, I understand. Like, somebody came to me and said Tyson Fury could have cheated.
Right.
He's a gypsy. And that's not to knock no gypsies. I'm not knocking gypsies.
No offense.
Right.
Let's make sure you get me wrong. Get me clarify me on
Don't
this.
start sending
I'm not
emails
knocking gypsies. But it's kind of the same thing with Italians in the mob, is that they do have they have some ways. So it's possible. And in boxing, cheating happens. So it's very possible. But all that aside, he was boxing since he was 6. He fought in bare knuckle fights. That's why they call him the Gypsy King. You get called the Gypsy King by winning bare knuckle fights. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He is a high level chess player defense. And he proves that defense is real. Like, when I first seen Tyson Fury, I was like, who is this big doofy guy in the ring? He's gonna he's not gonna stand. He's no way he's gonna laugh. And he's in there making people miss. And then I really had to zoom in, like, hold on. This guy's no doofus. This is a high technician. And he is a high level technician. As far as levels, no, Deontay Wilder is not on this level, can never be. Deontay Wilder is a Cinderella story. He came into boxing when he was 19. He did not even want to box. Tyson Fury was boxing when he was 6. The same thing I said about Khabib wrestling bears. Tyson Fury, his name was Tyson because his father named him after Tyson. Like, like he was kind of like they ordained to do what he's doing. So, like, Deontay's not on this level. No, I believe, even all cheating aside, a straight up fight, he cannot beat Tyson. He has to knock him out. And the problem with Tyson is, if he knows your weapon, it's going to be very hard to knock him out.
Sure.
So what would you do with 52 in mind and the training in mind? What would you do to salvage Deontay? And then, don't send this man any hate mail. Can he be salvaged? Is the question.
Yes. Like I said, he's a Cinderella story. Like, no matter what happens to Deontay Wilder, if anybody knows his story, all you can do is stand and applaud. Like, his daughter had like some type of disease or something. He didn't have enough money. He jumped into boxing. He became a multimillionaire. Got his daughter hooked up. Like, like his story is really totally insane.
Won like a bronze medal in the Olympics 2 years into boxing or something. Like, incredible story.
Like, incredible story there. So he can be salvaged. And if it was me, if I was in this corner, it would be in the footwork. Like in the beginning, Deontay Wilder used to bounce around like a spider. I loved him, but he still was very raw, but he was all over the place. What happened to him is what happens to most, and everything in that bank, I'm going to get him with the big punch. And they throw away. Like, before, look at Deontay Wilder before he knew he had a big punch. He was all over the place. He was a spider. He was in and out this way. He was using his jab more. He did a lot of things better in the beginning before he knew he had that big punch. So what I would do is I would take his mind off the big punch and focus it other places, because that's how he has to beat Tyson. He would have to, you now have to hide the right hand, because Tyson knows you're going to throw it. So we got to build up maybe your left hook. Get to you throwing more left hooks. So he starts worrying about trying to get out the way of the left hook and runs right into the right hand. And then you can start getting them then. So, like I said, 52 is big besides blocks. So I would use more of the trap and the footwork, like learning how to cut off the ring to catch Tyson, because Tyson knows how to use the side doors very well. Like, he slips out the side door very quickly. So if you don't know how to cut off the ring, you'll spend the whole fight chasing him, which Deontay did the first fight. And after him the whole fight, instead of cutting off the ring and trapping him. So that would be my that would be the drills we would run on, because the punches is there, and he can definitely still be salvaged. But it's you know it's not an overnight sport. Like, you know, it's not these things that you need to do. Like, once again, you're going against your brain, and if
Yeah.
your brain already has a particular habit, it's the reason why you stay there. It's the reason why, you know, if you smoke cigarettes and you try to quit, it's your brain trying to your mind trying to keep you in that place. Like, all right, you know, you took a break. You deserve a cigarette. Come on now. You know, your friend just passed away. Go on to smoke one, and you know, and you
It's
fall
true.
back into that trap. So it's very hard to fix that in a matter of weeks or months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but um, I think he could still definitely be salvaged because he has the equalizer. He has the one thing that can turn the fight around at any
Mm-hmm.
given moment, which is, you know, the reason why people love boxing. Like, people don't really love invincibility or
Right.
you know, people that are 0, 50 and 0, because it puts you in this realm of you're not human, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to believe that. So, and it's not true, really. It's really not true that, you know, you've just been navigated to be 50 and 0. You may have fought a fighter that if you would have fought him, he would have
Yeah.
fucked you up, and your whole team knew it. So they kind of navigate you through
Yeah.
this
Pick and choose.
thing. So, you know, I think that uh Deontay would need a lot more fights that because he's getting older, that he doesn't have to catch up with Tyson. I just don't believe it
Mm-hmm.
can happen. I believe the next fight would still go the same way. It's just not enough time to
Mm.
really correct it. But, you know, like I said, he got the equalizer, so he can always get that off and still win the fight. But Tyson is so defensive, and he knows what he's
Yeah.
going to do,
He's
makes
got
it
his
very
number.
hard.
Dude.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I drill my students so hard, because I tell them, like, it has to go for your technique to work. It has to go past your mind and into your muscle memory. Like, it
Yeah.
has to be something that just happens. Like, if I have to think about, oh shit, the right hand's coming, let me throw in my skull and bones, I'm already punched in my face. Like,
Yeah.
a fight is a millisecond, so you have to just almost smell the punches coming and then throw up your block, and you're catching. So there's a whole awareness that's so deep that the muscle memory is a slow memory. Like, your mind may have it, like you may see the technique, like, okay, I duck under, throw the hook.
Yeah.
But until you put it in the muscle memory,
Mm-hmm.
you'll still be getting clocked upside your head, and you won't be ducking under nothing.
Next thing you know, you'll be falling back into mantis stuff.
Well,
So,
that's why you gotta spar.
last question, man, and then I want to
Yeah.
give you a chance to promote any projects coming up. Like, so it's just you, it's the people.
Yes, sir.
You have one opportunity to tell them about 52 and what it means to you. What would you say about it, man? And what has it done for you, brother?
Oh man, like well, you know, I
That's a hard
I
question.
just did an interview not too long ago, and I talked about Red days, and 52 has, you know, given me my Malcolm X movement now, a moment where it's totally changed the path I was on to where I'm at now, to where I've been not only was I able to help bring back an art that I fell in love with when I was young, but it's became a movement, and
Right.
and a cultural movement, an American movement, which is big too. I like a lot of people say 52 is from Africa. This is true. You know, the source, it's the source of everything. A lot of things can be traced back, but we got to give our flowers to the people over here, the American fighters. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So you know what I'm saying? We gotta have
Yeah.
our fighters. This is an American fighting system, and you gotta have some patriotism with that. And so that the movement has became, and then what it means as an artist self, which is self-preservation. I think no other art um killing the man in front of you more than 52. Every
Mm-hmm.
art says to get through your opponent. You know, boxing says punch him into oblivion. You know, Jiu-Jitsu says choke the shit out of him. Muay Thai says kick his head off. 52 is the one art that says, I won't let you hurt me. And so it has nothing about killing the man in front of you, which I think is a real deep concept. Like when I read the book of 5 Rings and they talk about Musashi, how he stopped chopping heads off and started fighting with a wooden sword because he started seeing, like, if I kill you, how do you ever get the lesson? Like, you don't, there's no lesson learned if I just chop your head off. So he started beating people upside their head with a wooden stick. So you left with these knots and you went to go home and learn from, like, how did I get this knot over here? So I think no other art that I've ever studied says that more than 52, which is, it's not about killing the man in front of you, it's about self-preservation. So it's made me a philosopher. Philosophical with it because of 52. So you know, it's it's everything right now for me. It's become, you know, not only my source of income. Like, you know, I told my teacher one time, like, you know, I do martial arts. He was like, no, you don't. I make a living off of martial arts. Like, I'm not a plumber. I'm not a carpenter. I teach martial arts. And I can say that now, is that I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a plumber. I'm a 24-hour, all year round martial artist. And I'm proud to be that, because it gives me a freedom that that I require. So 52 is everything. It's giving me a life.
Amen. Folks, this has been an amazing show with the Mr. Lyte Burly. Burly, let the people know where they can find you. Let them know what you got coming up. All
right. The website, lightburly.com. Digital downloads, 8 digital downloads, a book, digital books. I'm working on the new digital book, 52 Blocks, all about breaking down the blocks. I have online courses now. The first online course, learn-martialarts.com. I consider that is the beginning, and now I've come out with the advanced bare knuckle, because everybody kept saying, yo, why you wear gloves though? So I came up with a bare knuckle course, and you can find that at advanced.lightburly.com. The YouTube channel is 52blocksinfo. Instagram, Lyte Burly 52, Facebook, Charlie Burly 52, @line 347-816-5357. If you just want to call and talk about martial arts, I'm for it. You know, I'm with it. I'm with the shits. And yeah, you can find me there. And I've relocated from New York to Georgia, so now I'm in Georgia, teaching down here. So if any Georgians hear this and want to come learn the art of 52 blocks, search me out. I'm down here.
Amen.
Very nice.
Zach, take us out, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Talking with a Dad, episode 86. Remember to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of your favorite podcasting platforms, talkingwithadad.com. And shout out the audio listeners. You guys are great as always. Thank you.